Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day to you, depending where you are in the world. My name is Jason Grant of Eagles Wings Ministries, coming to you live and direct from London town. It is 10:15-ish on a Friday evening, Friday being, Friday day is preparation day. Friday evening is now the Sabbath. It is Sabbath. The fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. It is the Sabbath rest now, which will run through from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. So that's a full 24 hours, as is in the Bible. I am reading from, what am I reading from? The End of Time. This is a book. It's a compilation it's a compilation done by a guy called Vance Farrell, and it's a compilation of all Ellen White writings. Now, she was a prolific writer, authoress, whatever you want to call it. She wrote many a book all about prophecy, all about end times, all about how we should live, how we should eat, everything referenced back to the Bible. And it is a very good, other than the Bible, of course, which is the perfect book, so to speak. It is a very good, all her writings are you wouldn't go wrong by reading and following them. So this is a compilation, and it tends to be a bit repetitive at times, because what she did many writings, and she brought in many end time prophecies into her writings, which gets repeated from one book to another writing. And what he's done, he's brought them all together. So every single subject, about end times, he's brought it all together, and he's broken this all down. And in this recording, we're going to talk about the image of the beast, which is a very a lot of people are misled by this, with saying it's going to be a microchip or a barcode or this or that, mark of the beast. This is all of that is false. The devil is the author of confusion and lies. And this is what I believe to be the truth. It is referred back to the Bible scripturally as well. So there will be a bit of repetition here, but this is all that Ellen White wrote about the image of the beast, referenced directly back to the Bible as well. So I will read the whole chapter, hopefully about half an hour maybe. So I hope you're blessed. And it's chapter 3, the image of the beast. In Revelation 13, we're told about the first leopard-like beast, which is Rome. Yeah, the leopard-like beast, it's a symbol. It represents Rome. We're then shown a second lamb-like beast, which represents the United States of America. This second beast makes an image of and to the first beast. The setting up of that image constitutes a church-state union, mirroring the earlier 1260-year persecuting activity of the first beast. When apostate Protestantism, linking arm in arm with Rome, coerces the US government to enact the National Sunday Law, that image will have been set up. The image does not exist until that enactment is made. So remember, this is not like a statue or a physical object or something. This is like an enactment, as it says. The image does not exist until that enactment is made. In summary, then, the image will be formed by the two-horned beast of Revelation 13, which is the Protestant churches of America. And as they join with Rome, the image is of the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13. So it is an image of the papacy. And in addition, we're told it will be formed before probation closes. So what is the image? It is made by the lamb-like beast as a duplicate in principles and methods of the leopard beast. It is also made to that beast. That is, it is done as an act of veneration to the first beast to enhance its power and influence. Now, you really need to go and read Revelation 13 to understand what these beasts are, and you need to know how to decode, as it were, what the beasts are, who they are, and what they represent in our today's time. What is the image to the beast, and how is it to be formed? The image is made by the two-horned beast and is an image to the first beast. It is also called an image of the beast. Then, to learn what the image is like and how it is to be formed, we must study the characteristics of the beast itself, the papacy. And for those that are not sure, the papacy means the Pope and the papal system. So not the Pope himself, but the whole system. But yeah, the Pope does represent that system, but it's the actual system itself. And bear in mind, the Pope is not human anymore. He's still human, but he's demon possessed. Yes, he's demon possessed. The image is set up when the church uses the state's power to force men to obey its own dictates. In order for the United States to form an image of the beast, the religious power must so control the civil government that the authority of the state will also be employed by the church to accomplish her own ends, which means that the church, the papacy, has power over the state, over our governments. That is soon to come, very soon. So how will the image be formed? The image is formed when the religious power, because of apostasy, tries and succeeds in controlling the government to enforce church decrees, just as the papacy did centuries earlier. Now, apostasy, the image is formed when the religious power, because of apostasy, is when you fall away or turn away from God, when you come away from his commandments, from the way he would want you to live, and you just live your own or make up your own rules and ignore God's, basically. In order for the United States to form an image of the beast, the religious power must so control the civil government that the authority of the state will also be employed by the church to accomplish her own ends. It was apostasy that led the early church to seek the aid of the civil government. And this prepared the way for the development of the papacy, which is the beast. The image to the beast represents that form of apostate Protestantism, which will be developed when the Protestant churches shall seek the aid of the civil power for the enforcement of their dogmas. This is taken from the Great Controversy. It will be formed when the churches unite with the state to enforce a false religion. When the Protestant churches shall unite with the secular power to sustain a false religion, for opposing which their ancestors endured the fiercest persecution, when the state shall use its power to enforce the decrees and sustain the institutions of the church, then will Protestant America have formed an image to the papacy, and there will be a national apostasy which will end only in national ruin. That's taken from Bible Commentary number 7. It will be the civil enforcement of a religious duty. But in the very act of enforcing a religious duty by secular power, the churches would themselves form an image to the beast. Hence, the enforcement of Sunday keeping in the United States would be an enforcement of the worship of the beast and his image. Did you get that? The enforcement of Sunday keeping, which means worship on a Sunday and only Sunday. The government legislature will command obedience to that which is actually a papal decree. In the time of testing and trial, the shield of omnipotence will be spread over those whom God has made the depositories of his law. When legislators shall abjure the religious liberty principles of Protestantism so as to give countenance and the right hand of fellowship to Romanism, then God will interpose in a special manner in behalf of his own honor and the salvation of his people. The principles necessary for our youth to cultivate must be kept before them in their daily education, that when the decree shall go forth requiring all to worship the beast and his image, they may make the right decisions and have strength to declare without wavering their confidence in the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, even at the very time when the law of God is made void by the religious world. That's taken from Testimonies 5. Very important words there. Very important. The principles necessary for our youth to cultivate what must be kept in their daily education. That's why homeschooling is very, very important, because God's word has been taken out of our schools. And the irony is they're putting Bibles in prisons when it's too late. Not necessarily too late, but they could, if they had the Bible before, they wouldn't have even ended up in prison, maybe. In contrast, the opposite of worship of the beast is obedience through Christ's grace to the laws of God. In the contest, everyone will decide whether he will obey God or man. After the warning against the worship of the beast and his image, the prophecy declares, here in contrast are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Since those who keep God's commandments are thus placed in contrast with those that worship the beast and his image and receive his mark, it follows that the keeping of God's law on the one hand and its violation on the other will make the distinction between the worshippers. So the implications of this terrible event, this legislation will require obedience to commonly held points of faith of the churches and will result in heavy persecution to the people of God. By this first beast, the leopard, is represented the Roman Church, an ecclesiastical body clothed with civil power, having authority to punish all dissenters, which is going back centuries how it used to be. The image to the beast represents another religious body clothed with similar powers. The formation of this image is the work of that beast, whose peaceful rise and mild professions render it so striking a symbol of the United States. Here is to be found an image of the papacy. When the churches of our land, uniting upon such points of faith as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and sustain their institutions, then will Protestant America have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy. Then the true church will be assailed by persecution, as were God's ancient people. And that story of redemption. Now, notice it refers to America a lot here. America will basically lead the way. If you notice in media, it's always about America. America is all in the media, and most of the TV programs and everything are coming out of America. People would arguably say the president of the United States is like the main political power of the world, which isn't really the case at all. And people always say that America is the greatest nation, but that is not the case either. It's just the case the media portrays that, and everyone seems to believe the media. The worship of the beast will be enforced with the threat of death. The church with earthly powers. He was also permitted to behold the final victory and deliverance of the faithful. He saw the church brought into deadly conflict with the beast and his image, and the worship of the beast enforced on pain of death. But looking beyond the smoke and the din of the battle, he beheld a company upon Mount Zion with the Lamb, having, instead of the mark of the beast, the Father's name written in their foreheads. And again he saw them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God, and singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. Again from Testimonies 5. The lives of God's people will be in danger. They're only being clinging to Jesus and by faith looking upward to him as he ministers in the most holy place. Now, this, of course, refers to the tabernacle, the sanctuary, the most holy place being the you have the outer courtyard, then you have the holy place, and then you have the most holy place, and the most holy place houses the Ark of the Covenant, which is where God dwelt with his people in Moses' time. Said the third angel, they will be brought into close combat with the beast and his image. Their only hope of eternal life is to remain steadfast. Although their lives are at stake, they must hold fast the truth. The third angel closes his message saying, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. As he repeated these words, he pointed to the heavenly sanctuary. The minds of all who embrace his message are directed to the most holy place, where Jesus stands before the ark, making his final intercession. Now it says where Jesus stands because in heaven, everything happens in heaven and also happens on earth, but it happens in heaven first. And that's where the sanctuary is. And in the sanctuary, if you understand the sanctuary message, there is a high priest, and Jesus is acting as our high priest right now in the most holy place, pleading on our behalf. Just like our lawyer in court, you could say. Persecution always follows religious favoritism by a government. But the stern tracings of the prophetic pencil reveal a change in this peaceful scene. The beast with lamb-like horns speaks with the voice of a dragon and exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. The spirit of persecution manifested by paganism and the papacy is again to be revealed. Prophecy declares that this power will say to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image of the beast. Revelation 13 again. The image is made to the first leopard-like beast, which is the one brought to view in the third angel's message, which is Revelation 14. By this first beast is represented the Roman Church, an ecclesiastical body clothed with civil power, having authority to punish all dissenters. The image to the beast represents another religious body clothed with similar power. The formation of this image is the work of that beast whose peaceful rise and mild professions render it so striking a symbol of the United States. Here is to be found an image of the papacy. When the churches of our land, of the land of this world, not just America, uniting upon such points of faith as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and sustain their institutions, then will Protestant America have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy. Then the true church will be assailed by of serving God, protecting the rights of church and state. Protestants have followed in the steps of Rome by forming alliance with worldly powers, have manifested a similar desire to restrict liberty of conscience. In the 17th century, thousands of nonconformist ministers suffered under the rule of the Church of England. Persecution always follows religious favoritism on the part of secular governments. Spirit of Prophecy 4. Now, to touch on a point where it says the formation of the image of the beast, a symbol of the United States, where the churches of our land unite at all points of faith. Basically, the Church of Rome is not just the Catholic Church. The Church of Rome is every church that worships on a Sunday. That is the Church of Rome, and that is the image of the beast. The true church will be assailed by persecution, as were God's ancient people. The true church being those that keep the commandments of God and profess their faith in Jesus, the Christ of Nazareth. So the image formed before probation closes, it will be formed. The Lord has shown me clearly that the image of the beast will be formed before probation closes, for it is to be the great test for the people of God by which their eternal destiny will. And of course, then a national Sunday law needs to be enacted. The image represents a religious body clothed with civil power and represents the form of apostate Protestantism. It is formed by the union of church and state. Sunday observance is the worship of the image and the beast. It is formed when Sunday observance becomes the worship of the image of the beast. The enforcement of Sunday observance is in the United States would be the setting up of the image to the beast. The Sunday law decree will enforce the worship of the beast. The Sunday law decree will require all to worship the image. The image will be formed when the churches select jointly held religious beliefs and coerce the federal government into requiring obedience to them. So everyone now, most churches, I would say probably 95, 98% of all churches are now following the Catholic Church, and they are all part of the Roman Church. And they will all jointly then go against the law of God and convince the governments to enact and decree a law that everyone must worship on a Sunday. And this could take us back to Daniel 2, when Nebuchadnezzar built his statue, his golden statue. And he commanded everyone had to bow down to his statue at certain times. And that's when the three Hebrew boys didn't, and Daniel didn't. To punish all dissenters. The image to the beast represents another religious body clothed with similar powers. The formation of this image is the work of that beast, whose peaceful rise and mild professions render it so striking a symbol of the United States. Now, every time I hear about mild professions, I think of Obama, Barack Obama. He is so smooth and so good in the way good orator, that he could talk around anyone just with the way he's very charming and then you get Trump. He's just straight talking businessman. He doesn't bow down to anyone. Anyway, I carry on. Here is to be found an image of the pig. Now, don't say I favor Trump over Barack Obama. They're both politicians. I don't trust either of them. But someone who's more straight talking, I suppose, can be trusted more to a degree. Either way, I don't trust politicians, don't believe in politicians, don't believe in politics, many blood-sucking little insects. Here is to be found an image of the papacy. When the churches of our land, uniting upon such points of faith as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and sustain their institutions, then will Protestant America have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy. Then the true church will be assailed by persecution, as were God's ancient people. I did say this repeats a lot, but this is taken from the story of redemption, which is a different book than we read before. When the leading churches of the United States, uniting upon such points of doctrine as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and sustain their institutions, then Protestant America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy, and the infliction of civil penalties upon dissenters will inevitably result from great controversy. Excuse me. Protestant enforcement of Sunday keeping on church members is the worship of the beast. That government enforcement of Sunday keeping on citizens will be both the worship of the beast, which is Rome, and its image, apostate Protestantism. And apostate means to fall away from God, from following God. The enforcement of Sunday keeping on the part of Protestant churches is an enforcement of the worship of the papacy, which is the beast. Those who, understanding the claims of the fourth commandment, choose to observe the false instead of the true Sabbath, are thereby paying homage to that power by which alone it is commanded. But in the very act of enforcing a religious duty by secular power, the churches would themselves form an image to the beast. Hence, the enforcement of Sunday keeping in the United States would be an enforcement of the worship of the beast and image. So, formation of image will bring national apostasy and national ruin. The Sunday law will produce a national apostasy. Laws enforcing the observance of Sunday as the Sabbath will bring about a national apostasy from the principle of republicanism upon which the government has been founded. The religion of the papacy will be accepted. 7. It will disconnect America from righteousness and will remain the repudiation of the principles and will mean the repudiation of the principles of the US Constitution. By the decree and for Protestantism shall stretch a hand of the Roman power when she shall reach over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism. When under the influence of this threefold union, the country shall repudiate every institution as a Protestant and Republican government, and shall make provision for the propagation of papal falsehoods and delusions, then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan, and that the end is near. Testimonies 5. Now let me just put a little bit in here where it says about stretching a hand across the gulf, over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism. Are you aware of CERN, CERN? CERN is a Large Hadron Collider. And that Large Hadron Collider is technology that is able to warp this physical world as we know it and combine it with the spiritual world, so to speak. Don't ask me how they do it, but they do it. And they're able to enhance dark matter. I'm sure most of you have heard of dark matter, even though you've done what it is. They're able to punch a portal to the spiritual realm. And once they punch a portal to the spiritual realm, they're able to go, it's like a black hole or a wormhole, somewhat like that. The problem there being is they can go through it there, and they could, go into another plane or another time, so to speak. But the problem there being is whilst they're going through like the wormhole, they can't stop anything coming back through. That's the big problem. And it will happen. It is happening and has happened for all we know. The Sunday law will bring national apostasy, which will inevitably end in national ruin. When the Protestant churches shall unite with the secular power to sustain a false religion, for opposing which their ancestors endured the fiercest persecution, when the state shall use its power to enforce the decrees and sustain the institutions of the church, then will Protestant America have formed an image to the papacy, and there will be a national apostasy which will end only in national ruin. Bible Commentary 7. When our nation in its legislative councils shall enact laws to bind the consciences of men in regard to their religious privileges, enforcing Sunday observance and bringing oppressive power to bear against those who keep the seventh-day Sabbath, the law of God will, to all intents and purposes, be made void in our land, and national apostasy will be followed by national ruin. Bible Commentary 7. When Protestant churches shall seek the support of the secular power, thus following the example of that apostate church for opposing which their ancestors endured the fiercest persecution, then will there be a national apostasy which will only end in national ruin. Spirit of Prophecy 4. It is at the time of the national apostasy when, acting on the policy of Satan, the rulers of the land will rank themselves on the side of that man of sin. It is then the measure of guilt is full. The national apostasy is the signal for national ruin. Selected Messages 2. Protestants will work upon the rulers of the land to make laws to restore the lost ascendancy of the man of sin who sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Roman Catholic principles will be taken under the care and protection of the state. This national apostasy will speedily be followed by a national ruin. The Protestant governments will reach a strange pass. They will be converted to the world. They will also, in their separation from God, work to make falsehood and apostasy from God the law of the nation. That's review. The people of the United States have been a favored people, but when they restrict religious liberty, surrender Protestantism, and give countenance to popery, the measure of their guilt will be full, and national apostasy will be registered in the books of heaven. So may this apostasy be a sign to us that the limit of God's forbearance is reached, that the measure of our nation's iniquity is full. That apostasy will be a special sign that the end of probation is near. I don't know why I'm smiling, because that's not good for us, especially not for me. As the approach of the Roman armies was a sign to the disciples of the impending destruction of Jerusalem, so may this apostasy be a sign to us that the limit of God's forbearance is reached, that the measure of our nation's iniquity is full, and that the angel of mercy is about to take her flight, never to return. Testimonies 5. When the law of God has been made void and the apostasy becomes a national sin, the Lord will work in behalf of his people. Review extra. So, how to avoid worshipping the beast and his image? This is of grave importance. The fearful judgments denounced against the worship of the beast and his image should lead all to a diligent study of the prophecies to learn what the mark of the beast is and how they are to avoid receiving it. From Great Controversy. When the test comes, Will we obey God's commandments or our own interests and the commandments of men? If we're true servants of God, there will be no question in our minds as to whether we will consult our own temporal interests. If the believers in the truth are not sustained by their faith in these comparatively peaceful days, what will uphold them when the grand test comes and the decree goes forth against all those who will not worship the image of the beast and receive his mark in their foreheads or in their hands? This solemn period is not far off. Instead of becoming weak and irresolute, the people of God should be gathering strength and courage for the time of trouble. That's Testimonies 4. So, victory over the beast and his image will only be for those who obey God and keep his holy Sabbath. And when, just before the second advent, the voice of God spoke, delivering his people, and the never-ending blessing was pronounced on those who had honored God in keeping his Sabbath holy, there was a mighty shout of victory over the beast and over his image. Early writings. We are not to reverence Sunday. We must take a firm stand that we will not reverence the first day of the week as the Sabbath. For it is not the day that was blessed and sanctified at creation by the one true living God, Jehovah or Yahweh. And in reverencing Sunday, we should place ourselves on the side of the great deceiver. No. When the law of God has been made void and apostasy becomes a national sin, the Lord will work in behalf of his people. Selected Messages 3. There's a note. A study on what God's people should do on Sunday during the crisis can be found in a further chapter, which I will read, called The Loud Cry. So, we should now try to defeat Sunday laws. Sunday laws are inevitable. Sooner or later, the law will be passed in last day events. How do we avert the danger? It's our duty to do all in our power to avert the threatened danger. A vast responsibility is devolving upon men and women of prayer throughout the land to petition that God may sweep back this cloud of evil and give a few more years of grace to work for the Master. Last day events. Those who are now keeping the commandments of God need to bestir themselves that they may obtain the special help which God alone can give them. They should work more earnestly to delay as long as possible the threatened calamity. That's last day events again. And we shouldn't be silent. Let not the commandment-keeping people of God be silent at this time, as though we gracefully accept the situation. So although we know it's prophesied, it doesn't mean say we accept it quite easily. We can fight against it to preserve liberty of conscience. Effectual prayer should be that this calamity, let there be most earnest prayer, and then let us work in harmony with our prayers. Testimonies 5. There are many who are at ease, who are, as it were, asleep. They say, if prophecy has foretold the enforcement of Sunday observance, the law will surely be enacted. And having come to this conclusion, they sit down in a calm expectation of the event, which I just said, comforting themselves that God will protect his people in the day of trouble. But God will not save us if we make no effort to do the work. He has committed to our charge, so we must do the work he is expecting us to do. As faithful watch, we should see the sword warning that men and women may not pursue a course through ignorance that they would if they knew the truth. Last day events. We cannot labor to please men who will use their influence to repress religious leaders, to set in operation oppressive measures to lead or compel their fellow men to keep Sunday as the Sabbath. The first day of the week is not a day to be reverenced. Now it is the first. Sunday is the first day of the week, and it's weird because I've always, since I was a child, since I knew what my name, I've known Sunday is the first day of the week. But the very strange thing is, the last job I worked here in London, I was there for 8 months. I was on a contract there. I remember talking about the Sabbath. And I said it's the seventh day of the week. And everyone who I was working with, I'm talking about some grown men, some young men, were all convinced Monday is the first day of the week. And they even had a calendar showing Monday as the first day of the week. So it's funny how they, I don't understand how, and one of the guys is older than me. I don't understand how, I really can't fathom how people understand that to be the first day of the week, the Monday. It's the first working day, I guess, but it was really alien to me anyway, very, very strange. And so one guy did point me or ask me, well, how do you know that Saturday is the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week? And I pointed him towards Luke 23, the end of Luke 23, chapter 23. I think it's verse 53 or 54, where it says, Christ died on the preparation day. The Sabbath would draw off on, and everyone rested on the Sabbath. And then the women ran to the tomb on the first day of the week. And Jesus rose on the first day of the week, basically. I can't remember it word for word, but it says it there. And through doing so and showing him that Jesus rose on the first day of the week, and of course everyone knows Easter. They all call it Easter. They supposedly Easter is when Jesus rose. And it was about that time, but Easter is obviously a pagan festival, and Ishtar is a pagan goddess, so to speak, with a small g. But the fact that everyone recognizes that Jesus rose on a Sunday, he died on a Friday. If everyone recognizes that, and then in the Bible it clearly states the first day of the week is when Jesus rose, that's the Sunday. Anyway, the first day of the week is not a day to be reverenced. It is a spurious Sabbath, and the members of the Lord's family cannot participate with the men who exalt this day and violate the law of God by trampling upon his Sabbath. The people of God are not to vote to place men in office, for when they do this, they're partakers with them of the sins which they commit while in office. Fundamentals of Christian education. I don't vote. I've had to, I think it's law in our country in London to be on the electoral register, but I don't vote. I don't participate in voting because the governments have their agenda, whether they're coming from the left or coming from the right. They all have the same agenda, just in different ways, coming from different angles. So in America, you've got the Republicans just coming from different angles. I hope it will give a certain sense to this Sunday law movement. I think that would be best if in our prayers the unchangeable nature of the law of God were multi. We should do our very best to defeat this Sunday law. That's counsels to writers. Irlo government has been transformed from hell to earth. The two classes which are formed to enact the solemnities of the last days will be distinguished as the commandment-keeping people of God and commandment breakers, who are inspired by the devil and his angels. The appearance is as if the infernal government has been transferred from hell to earth. Spiritual fornication by trampling on God's commandments. God's people remain faithful to him, even if it means death. Babylon is represented as holding a wine cup in her hand, from which she makes all nations drink. The nations commit spiritual fornication by divorcing themselves from God, apostasy, and trampling on his commandments. But there are some who remain true to their allegiance to Jehovah. John beholds the loyal people of God, and he exclaims, "Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the command of God and the faith of Jesus." Revelation 14:12. The time in which the saints live on for those who refused of the beast. But through it all, the saints show their patience. They continue steadfast in the faith, even though their firmness cost them their lives. Manuscript 16. So this is the end of chapter 3, the image of the beast. And Bible says, when the Protestant churches shall unite, sustain a false religion, for opposing which their ancestors endured the fiercest persecution, when the state shall use its power to enforce in the institutions of the church, then will Protestant America and the rest of the world have formed an image to the papacy, and there will be a national apostasy which will end only in national ruin. And by we mean worldly, basically, from Bible Commentary 7. So this is the end of chapter 3. The image of the beast, and this is taken from the book The End of Time. I did read chapters 1 and chapter 2 previously. You can catch those in previous recordings, and the next time I record, I will be reading from chapter 4, which is looking at the false latter rain. Sabbath blessings to you all. I hope this has been a blessing for you, educational. Certainly has for me, and this is probably the third time I'm reading it now. So, click on whatever you have to click on, subscribe, click on the bell so you get to know what's going on when I'm doing something. I'm not getting money from this or anything. I don't not doing monetary things on my videos. I don't make money from God's word. My blessing will be firstly me reach heaven, and to also see you in heaven. It will be a blessing for me to know that you're in heaven, even if I don't make it. So either way, as long as we're both there, that's all good. May God bless you. May God keep you. May God have his face shine upon you. And enjoy this Sabbath day.